All right, so here we are to talk about Lifechanger.
So you were very excited to watch this.
Yeah.
And I feel like you got. And this is not a movie that you're into at all.
I like this movie.
You like this movie?
I thought this
it's
had a
very
lot of
pretentious.
I don't think it was.
Oh my God, it's so pretentious.
I could see how you could see it as pretentious. Sure. I saw it as relatively straightforward with some interesting elements that are not often used, and this was used wisely. I love the cocaine stuff.
I liked it a lot. Let me just be clear before we get into like spoilers or like plot things.
Leading into it, before we go into spoiler zone, I like this movie. I think this is definitely something you could watch. It's filmed beautifully throughout. As a low budget movie, you would never know. It definitely stands its own visually with movies of today.
Some research too, so we can get into that stuff later.
Okay.
I listened to the whole director's commentary.
All right.
Because I'm a crazy person. I liked this too. I liked it as a pretentious movie though, not as a because it isn't like a slasher. It isn't like a gore fest.
But what was pretentious to you about this movie?
The whole themes and point of it and how the way it ends.
Nah, pretentious to me.
The point is though that I'm sorry. The point is though, for me, I liked it, but it didn't quite go far enough for me to love it or whatever. But I still recommend watching it for all the reasons you said. I'm not sure exactly what its budget was, but it's made on the cheap. It's very well done. It's an achievement. I would love to see this dude's further works once he has more whatevers or whatever. I don't know how old he is, if he's a young dude or something like that, but
I don't know.
Yeah. The writer-director doesn't have a lot of other credits.
Yeah.
So this is one of the earlier things that he's done. Canadian chap.
The Canadians always bringing us the gold.
Yeah. Okay.
So both people here are saying this is good. Thumbs up. Watch it.
Yes.
If you want to hear more, we're entering the spoiler zone right now, where we're going to just talk about the movie completely. Walk away or watch.
If you need a place to rent content, you better listen. We're Cannibal Video and we eat the competition.
So we read the box, but before we watched it, you were like, I know more about this than you do, so I'm just going to leave it at that. I can't wait, blah, blah, blah.
I knew the premise of the movie was a person who has the power to take over people and has to do that in order to keep living. They only last so long, it degrades, and I knew that they were infatuated with one person and revolving their life around trying to get closer to that person. I didn't know how exactly that was going to work because it's a difficult premise. If your body changes every, potentially 3 days to... Some seem to get a little longer than that, like a week or two, whatever. But and it says earlier in her life, or his life, got a year or more. But when you constantly are rotating, it's hard to ever get close to somebody. But they make a lot of stabs, and she with a lot of success.
What?
It's nothing.
And you're like, okay, but never did it feel forced or cheesy or oh yeah, that would work. It came across as real conversation. It seemed genuine. The connections always seemed real.
That's cool.
I liked where things were going.
I'm glad to hear you say that, because a lot of people on the internet were saying that the acting was bad or something like that.
I don't think the acting was bad at all.
I did not think that was true at all.
I thought one character, the dentist, was a little iffy on me.
Never better.
Okay then.
He's hokey, but that's his thing.
I took a lot of that where it was bad acting as well, the person's in the middle of lying, so maybe that's a bad liar.
Yeah, no, the voiceover I think helps.
The voiceover I thought was great, being the old man's voiceover, which turns out to be the man at the very end of the movie, which I just thought it was his inner monologue is how old he has aged throughout life.
Right.
It's a hell of a thing to have to make this choice. When I've got time to plan, I choose carefully. Make sure they won't be missed.
But I like that explanation.
When we got to the second to last, well, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, second to last technically too. The dude with the big hipster beard and all that stuff.
I hope this doesn't sound too forward, but I can't stop thinking about you.
His voice sounded kind of like the narrator's to me. So I was is that what it is?
I didn't draw a connection with that one, but I could see how you could.
It turns out the voice of Drew is a whole different guy. It's none of the
Interesting.
Because in the end credits, it flashes a few things.
And narrator.
And the last one is and the voice of Drew, someone totally different or whatever. And so I'll just pepper in my director's commentary knowledge throughout.
Okay.
The dude had Lance Hendrickson lined up to do the narration, but this is a Southern Ontario non-union off-the-grid production, and SAG was like, "No way, Lance, you're not doing this," or something like that. And if I can imagine anyone who has pushed his SAG exemptions to the very limit, it's Lance Hendrickson. So I'm like, all right, fine, that makes perfect sense. I don't think he's BSing at all.
You see, the truth is that I am just as good with either.
But you know, but the guy said, yeah, Lance was down, and then like couldn't do it because of like whatever reasons. And I'm like, that's awesome. That's so dumb that he had like a thing and didn't. Yeah.
Too bad. That could have been cool. But I don't think he was really hurt for not having any big star name.
I liked the narrator and all that stuff because the first body is so the opposite of the way the narrator sounds that it instantly gets the point across.
Yeah.
That was the other thing too. He spends a whole portion of the commentary defending even having a voiceover. The guy's kind of nervous. The director guy.
I thought the voiceover was great. I think that it was super needed, and it worked beautifully for tying all these characters together.
Injuries don't follow me to the next body.
What the fuck is happening to me?
Until now.
There are people, though, who say that having a voiceover in your movie is like cheating or something like that. So apparently,
isn't this from a book?
I don't know.
I thought maybe I made that up. Oh no, something else was from a book. Never mind.
But like, I'm sure that guy's just heard this criticism, or maybe he was like, I want a narrator, and people were like, yikes, dog, and he was like, no, trust me, and they're like, I don't know, or something, because he seems to have all this baggage about using the voiceover. But I agree, like, it's perfect.
I think when you use something it doesn't matter if it's like, oh, we don't do that, it's frowned upon, it's cliche, anything. If you do something well and it fits in your movie, who cares what the reason is?
Rules are made to be broken.
Rules are.
Yeah. There was one line that I didn't love.
What's that?
When someone says like, "Do you consider yourself something?" and then like the voiceover like interjects and says, "I don't even know if I consider myself human."
Do you consider yourself a good person?
I'm not even sure I consider myself a person.
The real question.
It's like very like corny and weird. I didn't like that.
I recall that line. But, it didn't jar me in any way.
That was my lowest point, and then there's one that's like the opposite of that, where like the guy's talking and he's in the female body, and he's like, "What is this douchebag talking about?" or something like that, and I was like, "Oh, that's like where that worked for me better or whatever."
15-yard line, boom, I get it, sweep right.
What the fuck's this asshole even talking about? What a douchebag.
That guy, the douchebag guy, that was the part that jumped out for me as like, it was weird. Because it seemed like he was like, okay, we're going to do coke here. I'm going to speed up my progression of this thing. I'm going to take over this guy's body because this body I'm in is hot, is wanted for murders and whatnot. So I'll switch over to this guy. And then like freaks out and kills him. Like, and I'm like, okay, you like, I understand he's a little aggressive, but
too eager or whatever,
Had you just like, cooled it, did a couple more lines, you could have just grabbed him and just taken that body and killed him that way instead of having more things to deal with.
It seemed like the thing was taking too long, or he was a thing. And like he mentions,
I like that aspect though, that it's not something you can just do. It has to happen on its own time.
Right.
I think that's awesome.
He mentions that like, well, the coke has a function, but it's also coke. So like he's actually like super coked up when he like rages out and says, "Get off of me!" and like fucks with the and like attacks the guy. So I was like, that's fine. I'm okay with that or whatever.
No, I liked a lot of parts of that, because you had said when we were first talking about this movie, you're like, oh, it's an interesting concept, and I thought the concept got even more interesting and original the more it developed in this. It didn't seem one-dimensional at all. You felt felt for this character and all these cool little aspects, and I learned if I take antibiotics, it'll last longer. If I do this and that, I was like, those are cool things.
Painkillers and antibiotics slow the change, but if I have to get out of a body faster, I need the rot.
And then when he jumps into their life, so not only does he become them, he gets their memories too. Yeah. So like he becomes a dentist and then does dental work on a kid. He's like, "Don't worry, I've been a dentist before."
Yeah, don't you worry, Tim. This isn't the first time I've been a dentist.
Not the first time I've been a dentist. And he's so creepy, like Dr. Giggles and stuff. That whole scene was so tense and crazy. You're like, oh no, what's gonna happen?
Well, I'm like, he's gonna destroy this kid.
Yeah, and then it's like fine. And you're like, oh wow, okay.
He may have some lingering pain for a few days, but soon enough, he'll be right as rain.
Thank you.
But
that's a nice testament to how he's been able to do this. Like I'm a huge fan of this movie, even though I think it was like not quite like, I think there's like an immaturity to like what they did with it or whatever. Like I feel like someone else could have come in and pushed it to be like great. Like,
well, I think that's true in almost anything.
Yeah, but some things
Very
are great.
rarely do we hit a perfect movie, though. There's always someone that could have made something better.
I just mean like this is like everything's so set up and it's like right there, and then I feel like having it end with that long rushed, to me it felt voiceover and the old man in the park and all that business. I was like,
starting as a whisper, building to a chorus, growing until there's nothing left of who you once were, until you can't remember who you're supposed to be.
I thought that was so. While we're watching the movie, I'm
whatever.
like, well, he's never got to the end because the fear of the unknown has kept him to never stop. And I'm like, I'm trying to picture what the ending is going to be ahead of time because that's like what I do. And I'm like, well, each one's going shorter and shorter. And I'm like, well, what if his power is actually that he gets to pick the body he wants to be in, and then he'll just like be that person forever. That was what I was picturing. Yeah. So then when I saw the cocoon thing, I'm like, oh, he's gonna be. It'll be like in my head. I'm like, oh, it's the ultimate torture.
He'll be 12.
He'll be stuck in her body forever. Was what I thought it was
there
gonna be.
Yeah.
And like so every time he looks in the mirror, he sees her, the girl he had to kill that he loved, and it wasn't that.
Fun fact: the movie was originally supposed to end on the shot. Later Julia goes, as Drew though, goes to the bar. Drew as Julia. Goes to the bar
thank the bartender?
And says like, well, she's just hanging out drinking, and she's like, thank you, right? She says to the person. Then she looks at herself in the mirror, or he looks at himself in the mirror as her, and like, there's just this like shot of like looking at themselves or whatever, right? That was supposed to be like the end of it.
Okay.
Like,
so what caused
the
other ending?
He thought of a cool idea where he would be the age he would be if he hadn't have done any of this or whatever.
Huh. Well, that doesn't make sense, does it?
What do you mean?
Well, hang on. What was his story about the 50s? He's like, I was 12 years old.
He would be 76, and he looks 76, so I was like,
okay,
perfect.
I'll allow that.
Well, okay, so like the commentary confirmed that, but that was my, like I actually wrote down my thoughts while the commentary was ramping up so I wouldn't like taint my own thoughts or whatever. So I could have like, here's what I thought, and then he confirms that it's this or whatever. But yeah, that was just a little tidbit. Like to your point, I think that sort of horror Twilight Zone-y like ending where now he's like in her body or something would have been a little more, would have like grabbed me a little more than this type of ending that they chose to go with.
I didn't dislike it. I always like when there's a weird thing. That's definitely a weird thing. But I thought the punishment I think would have been a little bit more impactful.
Like some weird, and this is a different thing, which is also interesting to me. But I think he could have pushed it harder, more pretentious, more interesting. I picked up on almost where this was going, not exactly where it was going, because there's a line early on. He's talking to someone or his voiceover or something like that. He says something like, and then like the rot takes me, and if I don't switch bodies, I'll die. I just know it. I just know I'll die.
If I don't find somebody in time, it'll kill me. I know it will. It'll kill me.
Some weird thing like that, and I'm like, okay, so you don't.
That's why I was like, well, he's never died before, so he doesn't actually know what's going to happen. That's why I thought he would just be stuck in that body.
Right, or something else, whatever. But they make a pretty convincing thing. The one girl, like, he like squeezes the arm and like goo comes out. I'm like, oh no, like you're really effed up here, right? So I was like, this is a pretty convincing thing of like, I need to stop whatever this is from happening, right?
I'd like to know more about like the cut that didn't heal and how it used to heal and what's up. Is it just that he got older and it timed out his healing? It's a cool concept.
Right.
I like in general. I like weird things, and this is definitely a weird thing. It was probably like, was this my favorite one this week that I watched? It might be. Like had a lot going for it.
Oh yeah. This is certainly, there's a lot to like go for me, like to talk about and think about and do the whole thing or whatever. I liked every transition. I think he picked like good actors, right? Because everyone had to act like them, and then they had to act like him.
Yeah,
right?
that was something I was thinking about. Was like, this is a great role for an actor because you get to showcase yourself twice.
Exactly.
Very, very nice. Very fun stuff.
Hi, I'm Detective Freddy. Hi, I'm Detective Ransom. Freddy Ransom.
I loved him practicing their voices and stuff.
Yeah, well, just trying to say their names confidently.
Yeah, and kind of like rummage around and kind of
get a sense of it. Felt bad for that cop. I was like, you
he was in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Well, really, everybody was.
I was just swinging by to talk to James. He hasn't checked in with us for a while, so... Is he home?
He's not. Is there something that I can help you with?
Well,
some people at least, like, kind of asked for it, but not really.
I'm not saying anyone deserved it, but that cop literally was just like,
well, the rapey guy
doing my job, here we are. Well, yeah, I don't mean, like, ethically. I mean, like, did something where he was like, I will get my revenge on you.
Please.
He's such a fucking cock tease.
Yeah. I was also thinking, I'm like, if this were me, how would... And like, it's weird that he found out when he was 12. So I'm like, was he rotting already at 12? What is he? Because he says he has a mother. The mother is human. I wonder if he was adopted. Like,
do you want to know what the director says?
Sure.
Okay. His father was like him. He never knew his father.
Okay.
He accidentally killed his mother, and that's what kicks off the whole thing.
Well, yeah.
He doesn't elaborate, though, like, for the rest of the world, there's a dead body of your mother, and now you look like your mother. So he must have hid his own mother's dead body and then pretended that the kid was missing, I guess. As a 12-year-old?
Presumably.
That's crazy. But that's fine, whatever. Yeah.
When I was 12 years old, I was responsible for my mother's death. I was young. I didn't know what I was at the time, but I mean, it was an accident.
So you feel responsible?
Well,
not a deal breaker, just a thing we have to think
about. Do they ever explicitly say how he accidentally killed his mother?
Yeah, because
do they say he took her over?
So this was the pretentious angle, and I'll scroll down to my end.
Sure. What do you got, pretentious wise?
Because so basically, this was my interpretation. It's some sort of metaphor.
Is this your interpretation or what the director said?
We'll do both. I just said this is my interpretation.
Want to make sure?
Okay. It's some sort of metaphor thing. He's trying to recapture, because he says, like, when I killed my mother, when I took her, he says all this.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, I felt what it, that, like, unconditional love or whatever, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So we have someone who reaches the age of, like, 12, when, like, puberty would start, right? And then, that kicks off a series of transformations where he pretends to be a bunch of other people in search of recapturing this unconditional love that he had from his mother. And, to the point where he projects it onto some stranger because he's basically like insane at this point, like decades later.
Did he? I don't think he projected it onto her. I think he took that same feeling from her husband.
No, I mean, like, okay, but he thought that she would love him. He said, like, she saw through to, like, the real me or whatever, which is entirely delusional.
No, like, well, multiple times she comments, like, she's like, oh, you have sad eyes. Like, she's seeing through his shadow.
No, but...
You know you have sad eyes.
What?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you have sad eyes.
But she doesn't actually know anything about Drew or like Drew.
No, there's some inferral there.
She was spending a romantic night with her husband, who then left her, which, like, destroyed her life and all that stuff.
No,
right?
Definitely.
And then I woke up in the middle of the night and he was gone. He was just gone.
Like, but what I mean is that the part that he retains their feelings, you can't say that couldn't have affected any of this.
No, he has feelings, but but he thinks she has feelings, which is insane.
Well, but the thing is,
because he's a crazy murderer.
She did have feelings for her husband, and he took that whole thing, like that whole mindset. So, like, if you know someone loves you, you have a feeling when you're with that person.
Yes.
And he now has that feeling in his medulla oblongata.
Yeah, but he knows how it works. Like, he should be like, oh.
But, like, when people are scared of a movie, they know it's a movie. They're still scared.
Exactly. But that's what I mean. So, like, he's been murdering people and trying to figure out where she lives, and is like, okay, now I've dated her for a while as someone else, and now I'm gonna break the news to her. I just mean delusional. Like, he shouldn't actually think that this is like.
I would wager that his mind is so fractured from decades of taking other people's
I'm not saying it's necessarily his fault. He's the victim of, like, a bad system or whatever you want to call it.
I get their memories. This is how I fell in love with you the first time. I saw you in the love that Richard had for you.
But yes, like, this is like the whole thing. The director confirms, like, part of that. He goes further, though. It's actually kind of, like, cringy. He talks about, like, the movie trope of stalking as like a love story and all that business. He was really depressed, and a few years ago he wrote this thing. The Me Too thing made him think about himself in his 20s and toxic masculinity and all this other stuff. He laid it on, like, super thick and took it to a place that I could not even imagine it going or whatever.
Okay, so I will say all of that is pretentious, but doesn't shine through into the movie.
Follow the silver car already.
Oh, you want me to follow that woman's car? Yeah, I'm not gonna do that. That's suspicious as hell, man.
Just to comment, I love how everything's kind of falling apart.
Sure,
like, you meet
the man is on a downward spiral from the jump.
Exactly.
Slowly getting less and less time to live.
Yeah, you meet him in, like, a really bad spot where he's kind of explaining to you as the audience, like, this is what I do, I don't like it, but it's this thing I have to do. And then, like her husband in, like, the first scene is like, it's been 3 days. And he's like, fuck, 3 days, wait a minute.
James, I've only been gone for
3 days.
Emily, you have been gone for 3 days and not even a text.
Like, you can tell, like, he's off his game and he's scrambling, and that's a cool way, because you don't want to see him just knocking it out. You want to see, like, this is what happens, and then even, like, the place where he, like, Dexter hides the bodies gets compromised. Like, I like everything unraveling.
What you burning? Something smells kind of weird.
Kind of adds all this tension
to
the
I like
whole
that he's
deal.
had that property for so long, and, like, you know, now how modern life works, you can just pay things digitally and don't have to be anywhere, so he could still have things from his original life somehow, which still doesn't necessarily make sense.
Oh, was that his original,
that was
farm?
how I assumed. I assumed that was like the parents. But the neighbor knew him as a man, though, which threw it off. But I'm like, well, at some point he would have taken over a man, could have gone back there, talked to the neighbor, and then just left.
Well, I figured he, like, whoever's farm that was, he, like, did it to him or whatever.
Maybe.
And then was like, whatever, right? So, like, that was my interpretation, because the neighbor was like, haven't seen you around in a while, Bob, some weird thing like that, where I was like, I wonder, he's come through here and taken care of this farmerman.
Did they say how long ago her husband went missing?
Who?
The main girl character.
Oh, a couple of years.
Yeah. So we know
it's not like pinned down.
Yeah, so we know at the very least he'd been at that farm for that many years.
Oh yeah,
like, he said the body was there.
The quick news report thing is like, oh man.
Well, they say they identified 12
so many
bodies, I think, or something.
Well,
which honestly is like a fraction of what you would assume if the man's ripping through them potentially 2 a week.
Yeah, that was a part too where I was like, how new it is, like, the pace of this, because he mentions like 6 hours, and I'm like, how long has that been the case? Because your body count is like immeasurable or whatever. Yeah.
Well, 6 hours from when the rot starts to when he has to eat.
Yeah. Oh.
So the rot could not start for weeks, years, days, but once it starts, he has to eat.
6 hours, give or take. That's all I've got. When I was younger, I didn't have to think about it this much.
Yeah, he says that when he notices the rot. Is that? I took it the other way, like 6 hours until the rot, and then he's like looking.
Oh God, no, that couldn't possibly happen.
Well, no, later he's on all the antibiotics and he's like delaying it and all that stuff.
Yeah, but even then, that would the first one around, he wasn't on antibiotics, and that was 3 days.
I know, yeah.
And the rot seemed to have just started when the cop got there.
Right. Well, he was ready to go.
Yeah. I like that. Always having a go bag. Like, there's a lot of interesting things to think about if you were in this man's position, how you would live your life and what you would do.
Exactly.
Or, like, what if he would have never taken the first person? What would have happened? Like, would he have just gone into a cocoon and popped out at the same age he was?
Yeah, no. So that was my other note, too, was like the whole thing was kind of unnecessary. He could have just not done any of this. And the director hit that a few times, too. He said something like, and I found this interesting, of like, if you're misinformed or if you're making bad assumptions, if you don't know yourself. I think something happened with this guy, this like director or whatever. But if you're in that situation, you can like do damage when really like,
sure,
and like
that's true.
And the cocoon is him finally being like, okay, listen, I'm not going to do, right? And then he ends up right where he left off. So yeah, he could have been 15 or whenever his mother's body like wound down, he could have been like, this is crazy, I'm a monster, so I should just chill. And then he would have been like, may have led a normal life. Like, that's crazy, right? I don't even know what the circumstances around the first swap was, right?
I wonder though, what if it would have popped out early, if it would have done anything differently, like coming out in your 70s, you're an old frail man. I wonder if you would have popped out in your teenage years, would you come out like this super athletic guy? Like, is there any bonuses? Because like anything that has a transformation stage has it for a reason. You don't usually pop out exactly the same. You don't like go into your cocoon and they're like, oh look, I'm still a fucking caterpillar.
There's some hints of that, and the director confirmed, like, there was a scene where he like pulls, where like the old man pulls up his shirt and like the knife wound is gone, and he wanted to make that very like explicit or whatever, but they were like, let's just move, let's get on with it or whatever. And it's like, yeah, like they talk about that too, where he's like, stuff's been going worse and worse, and now I'm injured, and the injuries have started to follow me, and the rot and all this stuff. Like, so you can tell, like, it's in overdrive. It's trying to do this. It's trying to cocoon him back into his like original form to like reset him or whatever.
I wonder if this is his final form.
Yeah, I mean, that was what I got from the tone of the ending. Is he no longer will rot? Like he'll rot the way we all do, but not the way, right? But that begs the question: then what happened when he was 12, right? Because if he can only do it when he's rotting, like, what's happening? I would have liked the thing where he got injured when he was 12, and then it took his mom by accident, and then he made pies for the rest of his life, something like that, accidentally kills his mom. But yeah, no, I dug it. This is someone, like you said, it was made on the cheap and it looks so good and sounds so good, and you can tell where they made all these choices that I thought were really good. Even the cocoon at the end looks so good.
Yeah, no, that looked fantastic.
Yeah, like there's not a lot of like special effects, but it's done really well where it like feels
even
good,
the blood during the attack of the creeper dude, like most people don't do blood right, like where it looks too red or is too much, this and that. But like how his blood like mixed with sweat, like it was like dabbed with it, like it looked good. A lot of things to take away from this as like they did this right.
Yeah, exactly. And this is someone that I'm interested in following more work that they do.
Yeah, assuming there's more work, we can follow it.
I'm hoping there'll be more. This was 2018, so they could have something in the queue ready to go. And this is definitely like an achievement. Again, I don't know the exact budget, but I feel like not a lot. So this is really cool.
I had heard it when I first heard about the movie, but now anything I said would be like, oh, I've mixed that with everything else I've heard in my whole life.
Yeah, like the default is usually to say like a few million, but I don't even know what happened there. He talks about each of the actors and actresses, how like, oh, I knew this person from the Ontario Film Festival, and oh, I worked with this person here, and I asked them to, right, so I don't even know how much their
scale.
Yeah, like they're not really, it's not like a weird big thing. Because these are people that I don't recognize, but I think it's just they're all Canadian.
Alright guys, thanks for watching. Let us know in the comments below what you thought about it. Don't die in a fire, and we'll see you next time.
If you want to support the show, head over to cannibalvideo.com, pick up some merch.
And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button.
That's alright.
Yeah, that's something.
Whatever.
Fuck these motherfuckers.
Can you shut the fuck up?
Cannibal Video has everything you need. A wide array of VHS and DVDs. We ate the competition, now it's only us. Our expert staff opinions you can really trust.